Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to set up overlays for arcade emulators on a Raspberry Pi, and specifically with RetroPie. And this will use RetroArch as the emulator front end, so the emulators have got to be libretro based. That begins LR in the name of the emulators you'll use. I've used MAME 2003 here because broadly it's got the best compatibility, the sort of largest range, so that's what I've been testing with. But the config files can be used with any of the emulators as long as it's RetroArch based. So what I'll do first is just run through some examples so you can see what it looks like, to see if it's something that you want to use, and then I'll go into the how-to, really, how you can apply this manually or using the automatic tool. I've put something together so you can just download it and apply this on its own. But do be aware, if you do that, don't do it on a system that you've configured for weeks and it's perfect, because I can't guarantee the automatic process won't overwrite something that you want. I'll run through how it works though, and you can make up your own mind. Okay, so running down these examples, the overlays have come from, and I'll put this in the description, the overlays have come from a user called John Merritt in the libretro forums, and he's done about best part of 300 overlays, which in the big scheme of things, I guess there's a lot more to do. There are a lot of games emulated in MAME, but 300 and the quality of the ones that he's done is an immense achievement. It's absolutely amazing. Lots and lots of people are using them, and got to give my thanks to him to making those overlays in the first place. I wouldn't have bothered doing any of this video without those about that. So do check those out, and you can download them manually, or you can use them as I'm using in this example. So running down, I'll do some examples. If we go for a few of the classics so you can see how they look, Asteroids obviously is one. If we give that a go, fire that up now. There you go, you see the overlay put in there. The actual screen size is also automatically sized to, so the aspect ratio is roughly right. There are various reasons why it might not necessarily be pixel perfect with every game, not least because of the overlay size, but broadly you can see that it gets as close as feasibly possible and still fit the overlay correctly. In addition to that, there are also shaders here. You can't see so much on this game, but you'll see a curvature effect on the side, on the sort of left and right where it bends round, and also you get a scanline effect, and that's using Dave J's shaders. But I'll just start this up so you can see, although broadly you can see with this game already. I think it's a particularly good overlay, this one, the way that it goes over the screen. I think if I go into there, the opacity isn't 100%, so you should still see there. Yeah, you can see it underneath the overlay. And each one is sort of tweaked for the actual game, so they all look well suited. And most of the time in doing this, I've been creating the configuration files for RetroPie, ripping out the settings from a Windows-based one and customizing it for that setup. So a lot of the time of this went into those config files that you'll see. But also when I run through that, you'll see how easy it is to construct one of those, and you could do some yourself quite easily. Anyway, okay, so that was Asteroids. Let's try another one. Get Bomb Jack. There, it's a bit clearer to see the curvature effect on the screen there, and also you can kind of see like a bit of a scratched or reflection in the sort of centre left of that overlay, and it's just part of that overlay picture that has been put together to give it a bit more of a really authentic view. You can see again the curvature there. If we have a quick go here, there's also, you've probably seen another video I've done of an example of these that doesn't show the guide so much. It's just how some other games look, and I think that's got Final Fight and some others. I think Ghouls and Ghosts, and yeah, 3 or 4 others. But there you go, you can see there you've got an arcade in the background to the extreme left and right there. You can sort of see you're in that environment, and then most of the original overlays shown as well. It's not necessarily practical to show the entire overlay each time because the playable screen area, I guess, would get a bit small. But that gives you an idea of the Bomb Jack one anyway. Let's give another one a go. Let's get Bubble, quick look there. Again, this is running MAME 2003. So there's about 50 overlays that I haven't configured here because typically they don't even run in this version of MAME, because originally the ones that came from John Merritt are geared for Windows-based RetroArch, and that could run, I don't know what version of MAME he was running actually, but a newer one than this, no doubt, and he could get other overlays or other games running. But that doesn't mean that you have to use 2003. Like I say, these config files work with any libretro-based arcade emulator, so you can just copy them to a different directory. I'll run through that in a bit. I won't play this one. You get the idea. You've got the curvature effect, and that does take up a fair bit more processor. I'm doing this on a Pi 3, but I think it's probably fine on a Pi 2. And if you do find that it starts to get a bit hot, you get a little yellow square in the top right corner, and you can disable the curvature effect to alleviate that a bit. And I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But broadly, having an overlay and a shader running, it seems to deal with it okay, I think, or at least in this emulator anyway. Okay, what else? Let's have a look at Centipede. That's quite a classic, isn't it? Again, the bezel or the overlay here is pretty simple, but get the idea. The curvature works pretty well on this type of... That's not good. Curvature works pretty well here as well. And the scan lines, I think it really adds up. And then maybe some of you wouldn't use the overlays because maybe you don't want that sort of worn look on the bezel. But then you can easily disable that and just have the shader, so you just get the scan lines instead if you want. So it's fairly flexible, but you'd have to make a small couple of manual amends. Anyway, that's Centipede. What else we got? Commando, give that one a quick go. I'll give about 10 of these a go just so you can see what you'd be doing if you decide to install this. And it's pretty straightforward now that all of the configs are written and shaders are installed, etc. It'll only take about, well, it doesn't take very long to set up, so if you've got a spare SD card you could try using it on that. Good bezel on that one actually. It looks really, you've got some good details on the side. Some of them are a bit more generic, some of them like this look really good. But I've converted about something like 220 of these overlays, so out of a ROM set that's got, I don't know, something like 4,000 with MAME 2003, but then probably only about 1,000 are parent ROMs, the rest are sort of spin-offs. It's the best, 250-ish, the best part. There's quite a significant number there, and obviously if more overlays are created you can just add that to the process as well, and I'll probably add it to the automatic tool as well. One thing I should mention though, actually let's just get another game up. Dig Duck. One thing I should mention, if you're new to MAME, especially on a Raspberry Pi, do not start trying to get it to work using this video thinking, oh, the graphics look good, I'll give that a go. I can't stress that enough. This would be a very bad video to try and start getting MAME working on. MAME's different to a lot of the other emulators because, let's just start that way. Because you'll find on... I'm not very good at this game, so I won't last that long. Right. Other emulators like Mega Drive or Super Nintendo, NES, Master System, if you get a ROM for one of those games and you throw it at an emulator that runs that system, it's very likely going to work. There's very little incompatibility issues. With MAME, because it's not as simple as just ripping all of the ROMs from a particular board to make that game, because over time you might find you can get more detail from that board, or some of them maybe couldn't be encrypted before, and now they can. So over time, MAME ROM sets change. So if you've got a particular emulator, a MAME emulator from the year, I don't know, 2000, and then 5 years later the ROMs change for that, it's unlikely to work. So that's why quite often you'll get people saying, well, some of the games work, some don't, and it's because you haven't got the right ROM set for it, basically. So a lightning quick run through of how MAME works is you run a MAME emulator, in this case MAME 2003, and it states which ROM sets it's compatible with. In this case it's 0.78. If you get 0.78 ROMs, it will work with this MAME 2003. It's as simple as that. You choose your emulator, you find out which ROM set it's compatible with, and you use that ROM set. If you don't do that, you can easily have problems, which is why I'm saying, first, if you're using MAME, get MAME working, get the games running, get happy with how that process works, and then maybe try something like this. Don't start with this and wonder why some games don't work. And for that, the wiki on RetroPie is amazing. It's got loads of details. It's really useful. It even tells you exactly which version each emulator wants to run, and gives you a DAT file. And a DAT file is basically something that you can process through a program like CLR MAME Pro or ROM Center, and it will verify your set. So if you're not sure, you run that through and it will confirm that your ROM set's okay. And that's invaluable in trying to get this up and running. So please read the wiki. Please read the wiki before posting any queries about that. And then when you're happy running MAME, you could take a look at this. Anyway, next one, Donkey Kong. Let's give that a go. I think it's got quite a good bezel on this one. Yeah, it looks pretty good, and that sort of overlays the actual screen a bit there as well. Again, by default, all of these games I've got using Dave J's shader, and the curvature effect is on, so you can always change that if you want to. Dave J's also got a slight variant of his shader called vertical, and that's geared obviously for games that are running in a vertical mode, so the scrolling looks a bit more natural. Whoa, dead. But yeah, that was Donkey Kong. Okay, what else? Each of these games here listed, and there's about 200 to 250, have all got configurable overlays. And like I say, there's about 50 that I haven't done yet, but don't work in MAME 2003 anyway. Oh, and as you can see, I'm running all of these games I'm trying perfectly well, and that's because I have checked the ROM set, and I know that the ROMs I'm using, got it, are compatible with this. So I'm not getting any loading problems here. Some of you might have used the video manager tool that I've written before as well for console games, because in a lot of ways the console games are much easier to do overlays for, because typically 95% of each console game will have the same resolution. So all the Mega Drive ones will be the same resolution, or the vast majority will, or the NES or the SNES. So because you can assume that, you know how big to make the overlay, whereas with MAME arcade games, it's almost every one is different. You've got to, and then not least that, you've got a different bezel anyway, so it's almost got to be created manually. So if you do see more overlays, it's worth downloading them and trying to configure them. What should we try? Galaxian. Again, there's 5 or 6 other examples on the other video that I've made as well that you might want to check out. This is another reason why it took me so long to do this, actually. You've got to I tested every game and then I just spent ages playing it. Okay, what else is popular? I know a lot of people try Mortal Kombat, so let's give that one a quick go. Anyway, that works pretty well. So like this one, the bezel isn't necessarily the most interesting one, but it still gives it a really sort of good authentic look, as well as the shaders obviously. Enough of that one. Let's try one more then. Space Invaders maybe, a bit of a classic. Great little bezel there. It's not exactly over the playing area, but it really sort of comes into the screen there. I think it's really good. I think it adds quite a lot, but obviously it's up to you if you want to give this a go, or simply just use the shader on its own. But visually, it's certainly very eye-catching. Okay, what I'll do now is drop into the command line view so you can see how these are configured. And what I'll do is I'll show you the video tool, how to do this automatically, and then I'll show you where all the paths are so you can see what it's done and if you want to do that manually. So I'll give links to a manual download as well as the automatic method. So usually I would actually flip now to a different view on the screen to capture it a bit more closely, but I'm having problems with the microphone there. So what I'll do, I'll keep it on this view. I'll just go to terminal session here, and I think it should be visible enough. I'll just swap a keyboard about. Okay, I'm going to be a bit slower typing here because it's not really geared for that. But what will happen is you quit just like this, and the install for the automatic tool I'll put a link to, and there's just a few steps to install it. But if I presume you've installed it, and then you'll see here, it will look like this. You've got a folder called RP Video Manager. So if I change directory into there, and then run the tool with full stop / RP Video Manager.sh, press enter there, then you've got this very basic menu. Essentially all this script is a series of copies and pastes from one place to another. It's pretty basic, but what I've tried to do for a start, I always try to I'll create and copy files to places where I know it's not going to break or damage the way RetroPie works, and also not overwrite anything that you might have before. But like I say, I should stress this is very experimental. Don't do it on a live card that you've configured for ages, because I can't guarantee it'll be perfect. But it is an easy way to set this up, especially if you've just installed a new version maybe and haven't made any changes anyway. Okay, so the first thing you've got to do is go to the config menu, number 1. And then for any of this to work, you must choose option number 4, otherwise nothing will work anyway. So I'm not going to do that right now because there's quite a few files and it takes about 2 minutes, so I'd just be talking for 2 minutes about nothing. So I skipped that. You just press 4 and it says please wait, and then in a couple of minutes it'll be finished and you'll be back on the screen. Now when you download this tool, the compressed file, the zip file, is about 500 meg, and then because most of the files in it are pretty compressed anyway, when you uncompress it there's another 500 meg. So straight off the bat there's about a gig, but then you can immediately delete the zip file, so you're back to 500 meg. But then when you install it, if you install the arcade bezels, it's going to copy that 500 meg to other places on the card, so you're back to using a gig again. So broadly you might need up to a gig whilst you're using this tool, but that's up to you how to manage. And if you don't want to download this tool with the extra space on because you're not going to use the arcade bezels, you're just going to use consoles, you can download the previous version that hasn't got this built in. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is, now we've installed it, I'm going to go back a menu, say 10, and then I'm going to put the overlays for 1080p, number 3, because I haven't mentioned that actually, these overlays are heavily geared for 1080p screens. Whilst they might scale down okay on other screens, some of the resolution fixes are specific, so in the config files it's expecting 1080p in some of the games, so I can easily imagine it not looking right on non-1080p screens, so bear that in mind. Okay, so it's in number 3, and then here the new feature is number 8, arcade bezels, and this is going to copy 3 sets of files really. One, it's going to copy the shaders to the RetroPie system. Although RetroPie does have the shaders that I'm using, I need to kind of guarantee they will be there, so I copy them again. It only takes about, I don't know, 100k or something. It's no disk space at all, but that's why they're copied. The second lot of things are the overlays themselves, so all the bezels that you saw, and then the third lot are all the config files for RetroArch. So, and that's probably only, I don't know, 300k for the lot or something like that. Not very much. Most of the file size obviously is the images of the overlays. So we're going to choose number 8 to get the arcade bezels and everything else copied across, and this might take a bit of time. That was pretty quick. Oh, actually, yeah, I just thought most of the grunt work is done on that earlier step where we install it. That's copying across. This just puts the config files into place, so that's why it's much quicker. And as the details say there, I say what files have been written to where. So these files are going to be written in the MAME libretro folder, which means that MAME 2003 will automatically see them. Obviously it'll only work for the games that, 1, you've got the ROM of, and 2, there's an overlay config file for. So if there isn't an overlay yet for it, obviously it's not going to show it, and if you haven't got the ROM, obviously it's not going to show it either. But it copies all of those across the old 220 or so. And then I've just put a reminder there about the curvature, which adds a bit of CPU weight to the running of it, and you can easily turn it off by just changing that one line, and I'll navigate there in a minute and we can see. But that's it, that's all you've got to do to get it up and running with those arcade bezels. Obviously you've got to put your MAME ROMs in the right folder, which is that one just listed up there, HomePie, RetroPie ROMs, MAME libretro. But besides that, that's it. Like I say, I will put these files manually so you can copy them yourselves to those folder rather than use this tool, but that's all that's involved. And then let's say you don't like this at all and you're not too sure how to get rid of the configs or the bezels showing. You can do that in this tool as well. If I go back, 9 quit, and then go back to config 1, and there, number 9, remove all the arcade bezel configs, done. So now if I ran one of those arcade games, you get it in its original. In fact, I'll give that a go now. I'll quit out of this, 10 and 5, run emulation station, and I'll try one of those games that I ran earlier. So now, by making that change in the video manager, if I go to play a game like Final Fight, you'll see there's no overlay, there's no shader applied, there's no aspect ratio applied either. So this one's decided just to stretch. And that's exactly how it would be if you don't make any changes, so it's quite easy to back out of all that. Okay, so now if we quit that and back to the terminal session. Okay, here we are. So in the video manager tool, it was as simple as first just choosing number 4 to install it, and then I subsequently removed it. But let's say I want to reinstall that, just go back to the overlays and number 8 there, and they're back and installed. Now what we'll do is look at where that's copied across, so you can see exactly where that's been put, and that'll also help you if you decide to do this manually, because I'll put the forum post up about where these folder paths are, etc. Okay, so quit out of that and quit out of that. Now the first set of files are in OPT RetroPie, emulators, RetroArch, and then if I just list that, we've got a folder shader and overlays. So if I go into shader and list that, in shader you can see there's a folder called arcade, so I'm trying to keep it separate so it's clear what that one's for. So in this folder, these are the shaders that the arcade emulator will use, and again you can pick up those config files that we'll see in a minute and put them in any you can put them in any emulator, but you should just only put them in any arcade emulators folder, like MAME Retro or LRFBA or the arcade one, etc. Anyway, right, in here, shaders, now I've got those files and I'm going to go into that shader directory there, shaders, and if I edit one with nano, so I'll edit that crtpie.glsl, and the only bit, well, there's two bits that you could change anything, but the only bits I would change are, one, at the top here, the curvature. You can change the horizontal and vertical curvature to get more more of a curved effect or less, so you can tweak these numbers around. So that's these sets up here on the top two, and separately down here, and this one, the curvature, you can see there it just says hash define curvature, and because it's set like that, the curvature will apply. Now if you don't want the curvature, or it's using too much CPU, you just want to disable it, all you've got to do is put two of those forward slashes just like that, save it, and then you won't have the curvature effect being applied. It's as simple as that, just put those two files there. Okay, so if I quit out of that, and what I can do here, if I edit, well, no, it's no need. That other file, the crtpie vertical, is applying to games that move vertically, like typically some shoot 'em ups from sort of up and down the screen. And you can do exactly the same changes there. It's just, one's for general horizontal or normal sort of games, and then you've got that horizontally moving one, vertically moving one in the other file. So two files there that manage that. That's the shaders. That's what's copied across. Now separately, here, if we go into the overlays directory, you can see again there's an arcade bezel overlay, and in that, all of those purple, pink file names are the images, and then the config file next to them. The config file next to them is just, it simply points to that file. So if I pick one, there you can see it's the config file says how many overlays, the name of the overlay, should it be full screen, and I don't know what that is, but that's there. So they just point to it, and you can edit those if you want, but there shouldn't be any need. I do have as well the ones that actually, yeah, that includes all of the ones that I haven't done as well. So you can see there's some without or rather some of those just aren't pulled in because the game isn't compatible with MAME 2003. But anyway, that's where they are. You can put more in there if you want. Okay, and the last one is completely different directory, opt RetroPie, and you can get through this with the Samba share as well because it's automatically shared. So in Windows you can just check your network to see opt RetroPie, no, not opt RetroPie, home pie, RetroPie, ROMs, MAME Retro. Okay, so in there, if I list that, I've got all the ROMs, which are, for example, ddragon.zip, and then the config file for that ROM, which is ddragon.zip.config or CFG. So all it is exactly the same name as the ROM.cfg, and then RetroArch will apply this. And as a very quick crash course into RetroArch config files, there's broadly 3 levels of application. You get the RetroArch.cfg, that's the global one, that always gets run no matter which emulator you're using. Then you've got RetroArch.cfg on a system basis. So for example, a Super Nintendo one might have certain settings that you want only to work with Super Nintendo. So it runs the global one, but then overrides anything in the system one, or rather overrides the global one with the system one, so you can have a priority there. And then the third level is RetroArch.cf. Actually, it's romname.cfg, which will override the first two. So anything stated here will override anything stated in the global RetroArch or the system-based RetroArch one. So you can make fine tweaks to a per game basis, which it can be really useful, especially here where you want a different image for every game. So let's pick one. They're all match for matchness really. If we do final fight, so nano ffight.zip.cfg, and you can see here at the top there's just some comments about where to find the video manager tool and the YouTube videos, but then after that you've got, it's kind of 3 or 4 elements to it really. This one has the shader to say I want a shader applied, and the next line just says true, so use the shader. And then the next 4 lines all relate to the overlay, the image itself, the bezel. The top one's the path to it, the next one just says use it. Then you've got the opacity, so how transparent or not it should be. And then the scale, which is always 1 because you just want it to display normally, I guess. Then you've got aspect ratio index. 0 relates to a 4:3 aspect ratio, so like the old sort of square TV is 4:3, so that game happens to work best in that ratio. And the video scale integer true is to make sure that the game is only showing in the correct multiples of its aspect ratio. So say for example the original was 200 by 200, so 200 wide by 200 high. If your screen was only 500 pixels tall, it would multiply twice, so to get 400 by 400. It can't go more because that would be 600 by 600, which would be bigger than your screen, so it doesn't do it. So the integer just scaling up in that same multiple, if that makes sense. And in this case it suited the overlay etc to have that as true and keeping a 4:3 ratio. Okay, so if I quit that and if we pick another one, maybe I think Gallagher might be a good example. Okay, and this is kind of the other type that's a bit more involved. So one at the top, the video shader is vertical. It's got the vertical option at the top there. Then the overlay is the same as before, just picks a picture and displays it with its own opacity or transparency. Then you've got here you've got custom viewports. So because aspect ratio is 22, 22 means use the precise layout I'm giving you above. So the X and the Y, custom viewport X and Y says what is the pixel position that the top left of the image or the game area should be. So it's kind of saying it should be quite a way to the right and a little bit down is where it should begin to show. And the 750 width and the height are literally how big should that game area be. And I've just made sure that's broadly the correct aspect ratio to fit in the overlay as well. Yeah, and also because that kind of breaks the video scale integer rule, because it won't be precisely that naturally. I said video scale integer false. But they are the per ROM files, and you can tweak them, you can change them if you don't like the settings in them. You can just easily manually edit it, but that's what's making the overlays and shaders show. If I deleted that one, Gallagher would just run as normal because it wouldn't have any overrides on the per ROM basis. Okay, I think that's broadly it. As you can see, it's not that difficult to get up and running. There's an automatic tool to do it if you want, or you can copy the files manually there yourself. If you do have any questions, if they're about how to get games running in MAME, don't ask those. Instead, just ask questions about how this particular install works. If you want to know about how to get games running, just read the wiki, because all the instructions are there and they are very good. Yeah, thanks for watching, and again, a lot of credit has got to be given to John Merritt on the Lib Retro forums for producing those overlays at a top quality, and also Dave J, obviously, for those shaders that really do add quite a lot to the experience. Great scan lines, and the curvature works really well on the Pi. Also, all of this work that I do on MAME and a lot of the other retro side of things is on the basis of using RetroPie. So I've got to thank those developers who work on that so much. And you know, just working on this that took me several hours to do, I realised, you know, how much effort it is. It's completely unpaid. So these developers who are doing RetroPie and maintaining it, you know, you've got to thank them. And if you haven't already, I'd strongly suggest donating, because it's such a valuable project. And then last but not least, on the RetroPie forums, there's a user, I think Dank Cushions, who produces some really useful wiki posts and also replies to a lot of users about the whole MAME experience on RetroPie. Is really, really helpful, and certainly got probably more patience than I have with some of the questions. And he's really, really useful. You often see him replying there to anybody asking anything remotely to do with arcade emulation, and he's got some great experience and info. So yeah, I just want to thank him for doing all of the support that he does there for all of the users. I think it's invaluable. Anyway, hopefully this video has been useful to people who want to use overlays on MAME. It does look like it really improves the sort of aesthetic of running an arcade game, especially if you don't want the black bars at the side. It's filled it up with something that looks really pleasing to the eye. Anyway, if you've got any questions, put them on the forums or the YouTube comments, and I'll get back to you. Thanks.